Hey everyone, welcome in this new episode of my video and my podcast today. This is a very special episode. I'm very honored. We have a special guest here today. That is Alexis Lebedoff. And Alexis, we've known each other for more than 20 years. I think that we've been working together. First, you started in a internet startup, but then you built the internet in Belgium basically by working at Skynet. After that, going to Microsoft. And now you are the country manager, the managing director of Facebook or Meta here in Belgium. And we're doing this interview or this conversation to celebrate your 10th anniversary, both of you and Facebook, of having an office in Belgium. So I'm very honored that we can have this conversation together.
Well, no, thank you for having me. And yes, we know each other since 20 years. And I was also very lucky to actually follow you and all the inspiring keynotes that you have been giving over the last 10 years or more. So thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Big pleasure. Now, Alexis, if you look back to the past 10 years of Facebook here in Belgium, how would you describe the roller coaster that you've been on in those 10 years?
I think that the roller coaster is a very accurate word, actually. I started indeed 10 years ago, and 10 years ago, Facebook was not what we know today. At least today we also changed name recently. As you might have known, we are called Meta.
Yeah.
And we have seen over the last 10 years a huge increase in usage of social media by the users, and there was no exception for Belgium. So we've always been very close to our mission, and the mission of Facebook has always been to actually give people a voice and also help people to build communities. And over time, we also became a platform that has been playing a more and more important role with businesses, whether those are large or small. And so this is something that I actually tried to do the best I could, is to give a local flavor also to that strategy that obviously is taken out of the US, but to apply it here in Belgium. We have on the platform over 6 million users, I think, on a daily basis, and over 70 million users on a monthly basis. So serving and supporting all those users over time has already been a challenge on itself. But what we are also doing here locally in Belgium is that we try to work as well as possible with local organizations, NGOs. Just to give you an example of the things that I was proud of, at least over the past couple of years, is a partnership that we had with Child Focus, for instance, where we launched Child Alert. And Child Alert is an application that will push actually messages if there is a missing child. Luckily, we have never had to activate it. On the other hand, working with associations just like the Rode Kruis Vlaanderen to help them understand how to use our platforms actually to collect blood and to find donors, blood donors. So those are the type of things that we are doing in Belgium. And then building communities is also super important. We've really seen Facebook growing over the years from a pure social media platform to also a place where people can really build communities, share, exchange information, answer questions. And there I think that I can remember a thank you dinner that we did for those for the community administrators, and I will always remember, because it's not about communities being large or small and what is the best and the most important community in Belgium. It's about the most relevant community. And there was a story of an administrator that is running a community, a group of that is called Nest, and those are widow women with children. And the story is that they explained actually and how that they found solutions and help within that very small community, something that I think I will always remember. On the other hand, you will also have very large communities that came and that are more on the more funny side, just like a view from my window that started actually during the pandemic, and it's a Belgian person who said, okay, let's actually post photos of what you can see out of your window. Imagine that community has over 3 million people. I'm also a member of that community, and it's not only about sharing pictures, but people really start to talk and to exchange and to also discuss other topics. So that's more on the community part. And then something that is very close to my heart is entrepreneurship, and the way that we can and support the small and larger businesses develop their business through platforms just like Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, that are essentially free platforms. It's also something that well, that I've been working closely with over the past 10 years. And it was even more important during the pandemic, again, when we saw a huge acceleration of digitalization and also businesses that were just like completely shut down from finding or communicating with their customers. And there, when I saw how that we could and that we were able to support them through, for example, launching Facebook shops, or by putting and redirecting to local commerces, or we even had a grant program where we supported the small and medium businesses in Brussels. So yeah, a huge evolution over the years, and a multiplication of our platforms as well.
Yeah, well, it's fantastic, as you said, during the pandemic, how many small businesses started doing Instagram Live, or indeed started to sell things online, or suddenly, had to fight for their right of existence and had to figure out ways how to use the platforms in a creative way. It was just fantastic to see how it opened opportunities, but also for youngsters. It's really nice to see that young people today have more options than in the past. We talk about the Great Resignation, how difficult it is today for companies to find employees, especially for larger, more traditional companies. But if you look at the possibilities that youngsters have today, I mean, they can become influencers on Instagram or on other social platforms. They can start their own web shops and communicate it on social platforms. So the possibilities to choose what you want to do in life have just increased tremendously, thanks to the new technologies that we've discovered in the last few years, which I think is amazing. And maybe one of your challenges, I don't know, was the evolution of how the market looked at Facebook or Meta throughout the years. I think 2012, you and me, we had to convince people that platforms like Facebook were a real opportunity to go on to. And then I think 2014, 15, everyone was convinced, and there was hope that these platforms would, have a huge impact. And then you had the more difficult years with, the troubles with Cambridge Analytica, those things that happened. And today we're in a phase that entrepreneurs discover it again. So the attitude went up and down in my perception in the past 10 years. How difficult is that for you to, keep that conversation going with advertisers when you work for one of the platforms where everyone has an opinion about the media, traditional media has an opinion about it, pros and cons are being discussed in public, and you have to manage that. That sounds really difficult for me to deal with all those, conversations and opinions.
Yes, it is true that that we went through a lot over the last 12 years. First of all, it was, if you bring it back, it was only about Facebook. And Facebook was answering all the needs when it came to social media, from exchanging with friends or building community, like I said, but also messaging, etc. Then we actually also went into a multiplication actually of the different platforms, because Facebook, Meta today is not only Facebook, it's Instagram, it's WhatsApp, and it really also started to answer different needs. And so we've also started to address different needs through different platforms, and we were also talking to other audiences. And then it is true that we faced actually some headwinds. The way that I look at it is that we are really a tech company, and we are really optimistic about what tech can offer to the people. And so this is really what we are and what we were focused on. This being said, we also realized over time that going fast into that direction is good, but that sometimes we also need to stop and understand everything that's happening on the platform as well. And many people are trying to take actually misuse of what's happening on the platform. And so we had to step actually a little bit back, to slow down, to listen a lot also, and to take responsibility at some time. What I also learned over the 10 years is that the more that you actually become relevant for society, the more complex actually all the themes and the discussions are becoming as well. And so that's also a way that my role evolved at Meta over the last 10 years, because when I started, it was just like mainly, like you said, it was about discussing mainly with advertisers, whether they are growth and so big or small, and to advising them on their marketing strategies on our platforms. Afterwards, and when actually it evolved, it was much broader. It was also understanding the complexities that is coming our way, and definitely making sure that we continue to have an open and transparent communication with all the stakeholders. So not only with businesses, but also with the policymakers, but also with the press, with our users, and be as much as possible that we could be open and transparent about what we did, what we do, and how we do it, and why we do it. And so this is definitely a learning that we took, and that we will also take further in the future.
Yeah, well, I remember a couple of years ago, I was at the headquarters of still then called Facebook in Silicon Valley. And I remember someone gave us a very interesting and very convincing presentation about how you deal with fake news and making sure that the content is reliable, and that you have thousands of people working on that together with the algorithms. But I can imagine how difficult it is, because if you have one bad story that slips through the system, which is something that is hard to avoid. I mean, even if you put 1 million people there, there's something that slips through the system that gets into the regular news, and it colors the perception that Facebook does not stop the fake news, versus you guys doing a lot of effort to really stop that. How do you talk about that internally? Because I think that must be very frustrating. You have this army of people doing it, you're having these best intentions, but still, you know, one case study can change the perception again. How do you guys deal with that internally?
Well, never give up. I would say, never give up. You are correct. We are doing a lot to avoid that there is anything going wrong on the platform. This being said, and we will always continue to that. We have nothing to win actually by having a negative sentiment on our platforms. There is nothing for us to win there, because users come to our different platforms to have a positive experience. But we know that it will happen. That's why we have been investing so much. To give you an idea, and if my numbers are right, in 2021, we invested over $5 billion in actually making sure and developing for making sure that the platform is a safe place, and a place where people can trust actually the content that's on the platform. We also hired, just like you said, at the time it was 10,000. Today we are already over 40,000 people that are looking at everything that is going on onto the platform. And even then, it will be still complicated to make sure that everything is completely bulletproof, if I may say so. So that's why we are investing also that much in artificial intelligence, because that's also one of the most powerful tools for us to make sure that any content that strikes the platform that should not be there is taken away, even before actually it has been published on the platform. So if you are asking me, is it frustrating? Yes, definitely, because when you work super hard and that you do everything you can to actually avoid these type of situations, then yes, it's frustrating whenever you see those headlines hitting the news. On the other hand, it also, we need to continue to be sharp, and we need to continue to be ahead of the game. And that's why we continue to innovate in everything we can to avoid those type of situations.
Yeah. Maybe, Alexis, let's talk about the big change that is happening at Meta. The fact that I have to say Meta, I still have to get used to it a little bit. I always have the feeling of saying Facebook, but the big name change that happened a couple of months ago, last year, I think it was. I mean, it's for me, that is pretty impressive. That a company that has a market leadership in social media around the world then decides to change its name, and by doing so trying to convince everyone, I think, internally and externally, that the future is not the current platform, but that the future is the metaverse, and that you're putting all your energy and your investments into that direction, even though we all know that it's not for tomorrow. I mean, this is a day after tomorrow project. I can't remember that another company has done that ever in such a bold way. So I wonder, I mean, I can get really excited about that. And I think the fact that Mark Zuckerberg announced that changed the market dimensions completely. Yeah, I was in LA this March, and if you talk with investors, I mean, they only talk about two things now. That's the metaverse and blockchain, so the Web3, and all money is going into those markets. So, I mean, all those small startups can be really happy because today all the money is going in that direction because you guys changed names and are so bold about it. So, but I wonder how does that work internally? I mean, did your job change, for instance, because of this new vision? Did the internal vibes change? What is happening behind the scenes related to this new vision?
Yeah. Yes, it is a big step for us as a company, and I think it's also it was the right moment for us to make that move. First of all, because the name of Facebook was not really representing anymore the company that we became over time. Facebook is the name of one of our products, part of our family of apps, but we have so much more. We have Facebook, like I said, Instagram, WhatsApp, but also already had Oculus and other products. So it was time for us to make that name change. And honestly, when you are working at Meta, we already started and we already went into that direction. So it's not that we announce a name change and then that we start working on it, but you have seen over the last couple of years already the investment that we did in virtual reality with a consumer product like Meta Quest. So it was the right moment for us to go into that direction. And then also, I think that we evolved over time from a social media company to a real social technology company. We are a tech company based in the US, in the Silicon Valley. Mark Zuckerberg is really someone who is really passionate about tech, and his belief, but now also our company's belief, is that the internet, like we know it today, will evolve and will evolve towards the metaverse. And it was a very bold statement for us to say, well, we want to be part and we want to contribute and build towards the metaverse, knowing that it's not Meta on its own that is going to build the metaverse. The metaverse is not something that Meta owns, or the metaverse is not something that Meta will build by its own, but we wanted to make a bold statement that this is where we believe that the future is going. So if you ask me if my job changed, I think it's really cool. Why? Because I've been at Facebook/Meta for the last 10 years. And also after 10 years, like anyone, you can just like think, hey, what am I going to do for the 10 coming years? And Mark came with a perfect answer. He changed the name and he said, look, we have a new challenge in front of us. And that challenge is actually very similar to what we have known 20 years ago with the emergence of the internet. So for me, it also really feels like starting over again and going again outside, speaking to the market, speaking with the businesses, speaking with our users, and explaining what we see and why we believe that metaverse vision is going to bring added value to consumers and also to businesses. So for me, it's super important. On the other hand, and there I really see an advantage compared to a couple of years ago, is that just like you said it, the metaverse is not something that is already existing today. So we are at the very early days. There are already certain things that you can experience by putting a VR headset, by, for instance, going into a Horizon workrooms where you can experience a virtual conference meeting. But it's only the first steps of the end vision that we see. And so that means that contrary to the internet, when when the internet was actually going very, very fast, and that often society could not catch up with the pace of the evolution of the internet, is that now we have the opportunity to build it all together. And that means having the right discussions with all the different stakeholders, whether it's new businesses emerging because of that new opportunity, developers, creators, policymakers, NGOs. How are we going to build that all together and do it right? With a couple of principles also in mind of privacy, of security, and also of inclusion. Those three are super important to us.
How do you see how do you guys describe the metaverse at Meta? Because there are a lot of discussions happening, different definitions are being used. How do you envision, let's say, the metaverse 10 years from now? I'm sure you guys have a vision on that.
Well, 10 years from, yes. So I will, and if you can also post a small link of Chris Cox, who is our Chief Product Officer and who gave, for me, one of the most comprehensible explanations of the metaverse from a product standpoint. So, and that was at Davos. And then also Mark posted about how that might look like over time. But if you think about it, it's a virtual world that comes as a complement of actually the existing world. So there is by no means the ambition of replacing existing physical social interactions, but where people will be able to move across different virtual worlds, and where everything will happen in 3D. Today, the internet, you and me, we are talking right now, and we are talking over a very limited small screen. You are in 2D. If we have that conversation in 2, 3, or 4 years from now, we will most likely probably not be in the same physical space, but you will be there in 3D in front of me too, and also with the possibility of probably touching and having a feeling of touch. So it's yeah, that's how we see it. And then you can apply that to so many different industries also. I was talking with a friend of mine this weekend about, and he was skeptic about the metaverse, and he was telling, yeah, I'm skeptic, and you want to replace everything and make everything virtual. And then I said, but imagine, okay, imagine my kids having tomorrow to learn about ancient Rome. Tomorrow they will be able to go and to really have the impressions of being in a world that is ancient Rome together with their entire class, and to really experience that moment. And I'm sure that they will also remember it better. And then my friend said, yes, that's good, but then that means that actually you are taking away the fact that they possibly might really go there, which would be then a shame. And I said, look, we are in a world where you and me, we have the chance to go probably to Rome and to visit Pompeii. But there are so many people on the world who will never have that opportunity. So for all those people, that would be a fantastic opportunity. And then for the ones, nothing should stop them actually to continue to go there. That's an example in education. You will have the same example actually in sports. You will have the same example in a business environment. So it comes as a complement of what we know today.
I met a guy in London a couple of months ago, and they were also building their own virtual worlds. And he gave this statement. He said, I think in between 3 or 4 years from now, maybe 5, every company will have a metaverse presence, just like you have a website or a Instagram or Facebook presence today. Do you agree with that? Is that also how you see it, that every company will be part or have some presence in the metaverse?
Yes. And I think we know each other for the last 20 years. So we started in the industry 20 years ago. And I also remember having the same conversation with businesses asking me, well, that's great, but do I really have to make an investment of that much to have a website? What is it going to bring to me? And now we are that many years later, and all companies have actually a digital / online presence. So for me, there is no there is no reason why that very same evolution would not happen. We envision actually that in the next decade, we will have over 1 billion people being into the metaverse. So that also means that businesses will go where that their consumers are. There are some challenges still. We need to work on the hardware. We need to work on the software. We need to work on the infrastructure, but we are already very well advanced there. When you see what we already are developing today when it comes to virtual reality or to augmented reality, you probably have seen in Belgium, we launched Ray-Ban glasses. Okay, it's not completely artificial reality, but those are already glasses where you have a camera, where you can listen to music, where you can take some phone calls. So those are the type of devices that we are building, and tomorrow it will very probably project a hologram, for instance, with complementary information. So yes, I definitely believe that both users and businesses will go there, as long as there is a real added value and that it's really bringing something on top of what they cannot do today in the physical world.
You know what the question is that I get most often by people who are, let's say, critical? They say it's the same as Second Life, but now 20 years later and Second Life failed, so this will fail as well. Do you hear that one too?
Yes, and I answer to that one often that many innovations have been invented many years before actually that they found their audience, because you had someone who had a vision, but that the technology was not there yet. Today, technology is there. So it's really the merge of virtual reality together with internet, the same way that we saw the phone and the emergence of mobile internet was actually the merge of internet on a mobile phone, and then screens, and then video, and then photos. So yes, they were probably too early.
Yeah, I agree. Timing and quality, and today, if you try certain applications, it's still a little bit sometimes shaky and gimmicky. Yeah? It's not the top experience yet. So I'm waiting for that let's say iPhone after the BlackBerry moment, for VR, for AR, the moment that everyone will say, now it's happening, and then we're gonna see applications developers and this whole ecosystem take off. When is going to be that moment? I mean, you must have some insights in that, how things are evolving. Can you say something about that?
No, but no, I don't. Yes or no, I don't have a crystal ball. But what I see is that indeed, around us, around me, I see many companies starting to invest, whether there's also smaller companies starting to invest into all those new technologies. And so we will also see new companies emerge and become important players within that new industry. And there I really invite also, I'm Belgian, I really invite also our Belgian ecosystem to start really investing and to really look into those opportunities. I'm thinking of XR Intelligence, that is a company that is helping and advising advertisers here in Belgium in making their first steps towards the metaverse. And what does that mean today? You take your standard mobile advertising, you try to add a kind of artificial reality layer on top of it. And so those are the first steps that you can take today to be prepared to what's coming tomorrow. But Thierry Jourquin, who is the owner of that company, already started 2 years ago or even 3 years ago with that company. And so we need many more of these, and especially in Belgium, we have a role to play here.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, in other markets in the world, people are already a little bit more open-minded, is what I feel, than in Southern Western European markets and Belgium as well. It's something typical in our DNA, I think, when something new pops up, when that it's very difficult for a lot of people to envision what it could become, and because of that, they look for arguments why it's not going to be a success. Versus, I mean, it's a matter of time. The only thing that we don't know is the timing. Will it be 2 years? Will it be 3 years? 5, maybe 7? Who knows? But it's almost 100% certain that one day the vision that you guys describe and that other companies are also working on will happen and will have an immense impact. And I think it would be a pity in Belgium if we don't start this learning track already, so that we don't have to catch up again, but that we have learning effects, that we know this works, this doesn't work, and that we accept if we do something and it doesn't have the highest possible impact, that's perfectly fine, but because you had the learning experience. And I think that is so important, that we don't wait, but that we act faster than later.
And especially that today, we cannot say that we are still evolving in a world with boundaries. Today, you can start a company in Belgium and you can also find clients outside of our boundaries. So the only limit that we put ourselves of saying, okay, we are not going to invest because the Belgian market is maybe a little bit small, is actually something that is not relevant anymore. And I'm thinking here about the tech industry in Israel, for instance. That is a very, very small market, but there is not one company that started and that kicked off in Israel saying, okay, I'm going to serve my domestic market. Every tech company in Israel that started was looking as a world, as a market, and not just like so I really invite all the entrepreneurs that love tech and innovation to now already start looking into that for our Belgium business ecosystem.
Yeah, I fully support that. I fully support that. Maybe to round off, Alexis, this is really great stuff that you're sharing. I'm getting really excited about that. But maybe as a fun question to end with, if you started working for Facebook 10 years ago, I mean, it was a smaller company than today, but it was already one of the global leaders. How did you have to apply for a job? I mean, did you have to then walk into Mark Zuckerberg's office and was the interview with him, or how did that go?
I was contacted on LinkedIn, and first I said, no, I'm not interested. And then luckily it was someone who knew me via work, who said, he then called me because he gave my name to a recruiter, and he said, please, can we go and have a coffee? And I said, yeah. And then he actually explained me more about Facebook, about the vision, about what it was and where he thought that we would be going. And then he didn't even take me at the end of the meeting. I said, okay, let's go for it. I do it. And then it was really early days. We were worldwide. We were 4,000 employees, to give you an idea. It was already a significant company, but today we are over 78,000 employees. So we've been growing a lot over the last 10 years. And so in those early days, we didn't have an office in Belgium. So I was shipped a phone and a laptop to my personal address, and then also a flight ticket to go and to start in MPK, our headquarters in California. And there I had the chance to meet with Mark, because this company was still a little bit smaller. He was having weekly Q&As, just like all of us in a row. I went, I said, hey, Mark, you now have someone, a man for the Belgium office. And we exchanged briefly about his vision about Facebook, what he wanted to build out of it, and especially also the importance of why it was so important to have a European/Belgian presence as well, and local representation. So that was really the carte blanche that he gave me, saying, you will represent now Facebook in Belgium and make the most out of it. It was early days. It was a different time.
Well, that's a fantastic story. And look, 10 years later, what all of you have done. So
I have an office. Now I have an office now.
You have an office. Imagine that. Yeah. Well, I want to congratulate you with the past 10 years, and I'm looking forward to the next 10 years. And who knows, 10 years from now, we can do another conversation and see where we are with the metaverse, what you guys have accomplished, and what then the new dreams of the digital world are, because this is not the last thing that we've talked about, I think.
No, and I count on you to continue to comment it the way that you do, in an objective way as well, and also to bring also the I represent here Meta, but it's such a huge ecosystem that is out of it, and I think that you are the man who has that broad vision as well. So
thank you.
So looking forward to many more conversations.
Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye.